And welcome back. It's such a pleasure to still have your company. We're going to get back into opinion court, and I must again announce that we had indeed invited the government spokesman Manoa Esipisu to join us in this discussion, but he declined to come. Anyway, on to our conversation tonight, and we're on to the second pillar, which is the economy. Take a look at the wall with me for now. This is what the Jubilee government had promised. Land reforms, talking about digitizing the land registry, reforming the land controls board and abolishing fees, giving communities titles to land. Another big one there, agriculture and food security. Of course, you know the country is facing famine right now. They had promised to put 1 million acres under irrigation in 5 years, reduce the cost of credit by 50% to crop and livestock farmers. That also promised to establish livestock insurance schemes for farmers. And also another big one is, of course, manufacturing and transport and infrastructure. Of course, you have seen the efforts that were towards that, the standard gauge railway, and we'll get into all that controversy surrounding it as well. But let me come to you, gentlemen. I want to begin with you, Karevi Muremi, who is our economics and governance expert tonight. I beg your pardon. What do you think of land reforms so far? We've seen the minister make certain moves in terms of appointments that have been contested by members of parliament, contested at the courts. Generally, have you seen the Jubilee government be aggressive in terms of reconciling land for Kenyans?
If you look at from the parliamentary angle, at least they ended up with the RAD Act. If you come to the implementation of the Act, that's where the challenge is currently sitting. So if you are giving them a score, I would give it as 40%.
All right, 40% is fairly low. What do you think needs to be done?
Because the bigger thing they have achieved is the road. In terms of the implementation, giving capacity to the National Land Commission, I don't think that area has been given a lot of attention. The other thing, of course, which the normal Kenyan need to understand is that when you talk of the cost of credit in terms of the banks, 5% of the loading that banks put on your cost is because it is more difficult for them to realize the RAD security. So getting the implementation of the RAD reforms is not only a RAD item, it's also a reading item. It goes to reduce what we call the cost of interest for loans.
Professor Kisengani, let me bring you in. We saw the president go ahead and issue land titles at the coast. He made an attempt to do the same in Kibra. Twice that effort was thwarted, and the court coalition came up against him and said that it was essentially politicizing the matter. When it comes to community land, do you feel the Jubilee government's efforts have been genuine in terms of addressing historical land injustices, or has it been politics?
I think it has just been politics, because some of the top leadership of Jubilee, if these land reforms are carried away, they will be victims. So because of that, they have to keep postponing the problem. And the whole thing that you are seeing, the economic factor, is dependent on these land reforms. If we make good land reforms, we shall make maximum benefits out of these land reforms. Look at the resistance which is going on. I don't see the Jubilee government gaining enough courage to make land reforms an issue and make sure that all land issues are sorted out before 2017. By 2017, we shall still be in square one. But what I wanted to contribute to this debate about is the fact that any government which wants to empower its population must reduce its borrowing from the domestic market. If you look at our government today, because of the pressure which has come with regard to the wage bill, it is competing with the public investors, the small investors, to borrow money from banks, and that has increased interest rates. The way out of it to empower the Kenyan people is for government to completely withdraw from the borrowing from the domestic market, so that the banks start looking for you and me at lower rates, and then we can invest that money, because government itself cannot create enough jobs. And again, in terms of legislation, this government has been long on pronouncements, but very short on action. It has, in fact, been outstanding in using the legislature to pass unconstitutional laws. These unconstitutional laws also send wrong signals to the people who want to invest in this country. It takes long to get a work permit in Kenya, but then you also pass the information and the communication bill that is gacking the press, and when it gacks the press, it means that you want to gack the press to keep away information related to corruption and so on, so Kenya doesn't become an attractive destination for creating jobs. So really,
let's come back to that when we discuss openness, which is the third pillar, but I want to bring you, Dr. Makodingo, on the question of agriculture and food security. Has government done enough to make it attractive, especially to young people, to find a meaningful income in farming? Or is it still too expensive?
Before agriculture and food security, land, I think if Murimi's entire basis of giving 40% on land is dependent on the land laws, then I think, according to him, Jubilee has scored 0, which I think is not true, because all the land laws were enacted before the Jubilee government came to power, all of them. Before March 2013, all the land laws were enacted before then. They should have supported the National Land Commission more in terms of building capacity for them. It hasn't happened as much. I mean, the allocation they got was fairly minimal. I actually like what Ngilu has attempted to do at the Ministry of Lands, because Ardhi House is part of the biggest problem that we have in lands. And her firing, it could not have been probably legal. She was almost censored for it by Parliament. But those people at Ardhi House need to go. The cartels at Ardhi House need to go for any meaningful land reform to take place. So on that score, I actually think she's done pretty well. In the coast land issue, I mean, there are people who've waited for title deeds for years. It most likely was political. It wasn't very good timing politically because it was too early. 4 years enough time, they'll most likely sell all the land and become landless again. But it was a good gesture by the government to give the people whose titles have been lying at Ardhi House for all these years. So at least they have been making attempts.
Okay, on to agriculture.
Agriculture and food security. A lot of what is agriculture and food security is not a national government function. A lot of it is a county government function. Yeah, county governments need to have put mechanisms in place to ensure that their people are fed, which is why I don't understand why we keep blaming the national government for the famine in Turkana. I mean, the governor of Turkana the blame should lie right at his feet. But I think the government could have done more. I mean, we've had problems with fertilizer. At least now, fertilizer is available. So they most likely could have done more. They could have pushed the county governments further in terms of pushing them. Now, it is not the responsibility of government to go and tell young people to go and farm. I know we need to. But it is a cultural thing. I mean, young people would want to get a Mercedes tomorrow, they'll want to get a 3-bedroom house tomorrow, and they don't see farming as the way to go, which is fairly erroneous, because farming is probably the only industry remaining in this country that has got nearly 100, 200, 300% returns. So maybe we need to do more advocacy in terms of getting youth to go back to their rural areas. It makes no sense for you to go live in Kibra, go to industrial area every day to earn 150 shillings, and most times you don't even get it when you have large tracts of land like where some of us come from. There are large tracts of land that are fertile, and the youth are not actually taking agriculture seriously.
Let me bring you in on the question of famine. Dr. Makodingo has said that the blame should lie at the governor's doorstep. Did he have the wherewithal to do anything about it?
I think the first thing, I think we need to put the debate into perspective. When you look at what we call the broad items in terms of the economy, the RAD, the agriculture, environment, water, and all that, the Jubilee government met a Kebake budget in March. So between March to June, of course, they were using the other budget. From 1st of July up to now today, what we call March, we are like in 9 months. So when we are answering some of these questions, I would be looking at things like the 1 million acre irrigation, which has now started. It was sitting in the medium-term plan 1. It had not started in Kebake's time, it has started in Uhuru's time. So when I'm talking of giving allocation to a score, you are talking of what was doable, because a government works within a budgeting structure, and that structure of budgeting is sitting on the medium-term plan. And no government should cheat you that I'll be able to do this and not this.
But to the question,
so coming back to the agriculture stroke counties, what would call the implementation of Article 189 on agriculture, which is the interrelationship article for 2 governments, agriculture was only agreed around December. So even to think through the process of whether the Turkana governor should or should not, one would have to have actual real story on the table. But there's something I wanted to bring to this debate, which is when we got the new constitution, the politics talked to Kenyans. So we as ordinary people, we have been talked to about the constitution. The constitution did not unfortunately talk to the bureaucracy, which is the inside civil service. So what we have been having is an element of a president who knows what he wants to do for us. When you listen to his speech to parliament, he's talking of giving us a 21st century bureaucracy. But when you come to the implementation, which is the confusion you are seeing in all these areas, the inside of bureaucracy, using the example he has given on ADI, that bureaucracy is still the old 42 ministries. Because what we did is we reduced the cabinet secretaries through the constitutional clause. We reduced the principal secretaries, again through the constitutional clause. But any levels below the PSs are still intact as were before. So when you come to something like that, you are not getting an issue on the table. What you are getting is you have idle people with an established constitutional mechanism called a National Land Commission. And because you have idle names who are trying to create work for themselves, you then get the feeling of confusion in the total government.
Absolutely.
And that same bureaucracy which is sitting at being idle is also the explanation of the wage bill. Because we are paying idle labor, which is not giving us an increase in GDP. So when you take the percentage, it is a larger salary base with no increase in GDP.
All right, we must quickly wind up on this pillar with the question of transport and infrastructure. And of course, many of our viewers, I'm sure, were affected by the Matatu strike that happened yesterday. It was one day, but cost our economy millions of shillings. And I want to ask you, Professor, are we in a position to, Professor Edward Kisiangani, perhaps I should put that into context since we have so many titled people with us today. Are we in a position to get this country onto alternative transport? Yes, there is the commuter rail. The uptake is there, but perhaps not as big as would have been expected. How do we get Kenyans not to be held ransom in the ongoing wars between county government and Matatu, so that if something goes wrong, Kenyans can't make it to work, can't go home, can't get to hospital, etc.?
Yes, the responsibility of public transport should be taken over by government. Public transport, especially in urban areas, should be the work of government, because government will know our priorities. The problem with the transport sector in this country is that it has been left to have new entrants anytime they want, and there is a cartel system which has not been broken up. And whenever they have a problem, they threaten the government, they jeopardize public operations, and that is the reason. So there is a possibility, and what we need is goodwill. I think for me, the cabinet secretary for transport has done very well. But as my friend puts it, he's facing a myriad of problems, including those cartels. And they want to block him. What you saw they did yesterday was to force him into something else. So what we really want to do is the president must be bold enough to instruct his cabinet secretary and to act and break up these cartels, and the government should take over the transport sector within the metropolis and in other urban areas, and then these other guys can operate outside the metropolis. At least they can invest in that. But this kind of chaos is unsustainable. We are losing a lot of money. He's saying that the president knows what he wants. The buck stops with him. He must take action, decisive action.
And Dr. Makodingo?
Mass transport should never, ever be in the hands of private investors. Nowhere in the world, even in the most developed countries, mass transit is a function of the national government. I mean, even if not the national government, then state governments. Because what happened yesterday should never be allowed to happen in any economy. I mean, we are a third world economy. We are trying to come up. People are trying to come work to work. A lot of the people who work in Nairobi live outside of Nairobi. So we have to get a solution. Now, public transport is a function of county government, again. So there was an extent to which the county government of Nairobi was to blame, though I think Kidero should stand his ground, and try to put some discipline within that sector. But the national government, in terms of security, the security machinery, also took too long to respond, because I mean there were people who wanted to come to work. I wanted to come to the city, but I couldn't because there were matatu crews were stoning cars. I mean they had blocked roads. That is unacceptable in any society, civilized or not. So maybe there needs to be better coordination between the Ministry of Transport, the National Police Service in terms of security, and the county government of Nairobi, especially Nairobi, Kisumu and Mombasa, the major cities, because it portrays a horrible image. I mean, tourism will suffer as a result, because I mean no tourists want to come to a city where they can't move. Yeah, the manufacturing industry suffers. Nearly every sector suffers because people cannot get to work. It is unacceptable. But other than that, there is also the issue of traffic. The last couple of weeks, 1-2 weeks, we've seen horrible traffic. You take 2-3 hours. I have a feeling that we lose so much money in traffic jams, someone needs to do the math, than the money we will probably save if we kicked all those matatus, yeah, out of the roads, for example. So something needs to be done, and needs to be done
Something
urgently.
needs to be done. You said government needs to take over public transport. All right, we will move. And welcome back. We're glad you're still with us on Citizen Live at 9. My panel grows this on this topic because Irene Kano, who is the Vice Chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, is joining us now. You're welcome to the panel. Let's take a look now at the final pillar. It's here on our magic wall, and that is a question of openness. And this is what the Jubilee government had promised so far. Good governance, it would fight corruption, and it would ensure that devolution is cascaded. So we want to find out first from you, Irene, what are the challenges and what are the successes so far for the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission?
I think, thank you, Anne. I think first of all I should start with the successes. We're going to launch our strategic plan 2014-2019 this month. It will guide us in terms of our activities for the 5-year period, and it has been aligned according to the new act and also the constitution. And secondly, we've done a lot of advisories for the county government. That's really trying to tell them that they should ensure that public finances are managed well and ensure that any systems they put in place, we can actually come and do a system examination on those systems to tell them that this system has loopholes for corruption, and we are even willing to give them more advice in terms of setting up their systems. In terms of the challenges that we are thin on the ground. We have a workforce of around 300 against a population of both public sector and state officials. So we are really thin on the ground. So if we really wanted to be in all the counties, it's really difficult. We rely on now the Auditor General's report from there, because we have asked for budget so that we can spread ourselves into the counties, but that might be faced, and we understand that because government is really a little bit strained in that respect. So if we get this report and the little human capacity that we have, that goes on through different counties, like we have done like 5 counties in terms of the advisories. Actually, these are the counties that were ranked most corrupt. Wasingishu was one of them, Kakamega, Bungoma, Meru, I think. So we visited all those counties, and we are telling them that we are doing the second perception survey again this month. And we're going to rank all the counties. But initially that perception survey that we did was based on the local authorities. So basically they inherited that kind of perception survey for them. But going forward, that's the basis for their learning. And we are telling them that we are there to provide preventive. In fact, we are saying 70% of our time and resources is going to be on preventive. We don't want to take people to court.
What do you say to Kenyans who say that the measure of success is in fact that, not just taking them to court, but actually getting cases that are tried and securing convictions, and that in the absence of that, your commission has not been successful?
I don't think I would agree with that, because we have done a lot of preventive strategies all around the country. The only problem is, the challenge is, most of those, we would maybe request media to highlight most of those things, because they are not highlighted. If we are taking somebody to court, the media will be there 100%. But if we are talking to a community and telling them about corruption prevention strategies, we will hardly be aired. We will find a little article in the back page, you know, talking about Irene Keino was in Kakamega talking to the governor and all that. And I think if you look at what our president has done in almost all his speeches, he's talking about corruption. In almost all his public gathering, he's actually telling public servants, starting with the CSs, that anybody who's corrupt should step aside, shouldn't wait. And for us, setting that tone on the top really helps us in forging our agendas very easily and very smoothly.
Let's be specific with this government's tenure. It's been 1 year. Of course, there's been the controversy over the standard gauge railway. Have there been any other cases that you are looking at involving the new crop of leadership?
I would say yes, not specifically targeting any sector of them. Wherever somebody is not actually following the rules, and the rules are laid down, we will investigate, and we are investigating most of them.
All right, let me bring it now to my panel. Professor, what's your take on corruption? We saw the government enter some sort of memoranda, if you like, with Transparency International. They will be doing a review. Is that a cosmetic approach to fighting corruption, or do you think it could get some real results?
Maybe we could get some results, but what I don't want to be a pessimist. Maybe there will be some results, but I'm very lucky today because I've listened to Irene Keino. I've always wanted to listen to you, and I can now understand from what you have said why you have registered very little success, and I want to help you on this show. One, you are talking is revolving around officialdom. You remember, your commission is independent. It must act independently. And you seem to set the beacon that once the president says something, then that is the way to go. You have a constitutional mandate to do things your own way. Don't wait for approval from the president. So you are answerable to the people of Kenya, and I realize you have not even mentioned them. The second thing you have said, which is also shocking, is that you always rely on the reports from the Auditor General. You must know that in the capacity you are, the public has more information than the Auditor General. The Auditor General makes general statements. And I can understand why so many cases have been reported to you, and I've met so many people, because my work is research, who have reported a number of things from directly to you, and you have not taken action. Please expand your appeal to get more information from the public. Then the third thing that you haven't mentioned, and I'm also shocked about it, when Anne asked you about the level of success you have registered, or maybe the failures or the challenges, I thought you would say that the greatest impediment to your work is the judiciary. We have had cases where you have even reined in some senior officers. The recent case which was in the media was the central bank governor, and then they go to the judiciary to get injunctions, and you don't move forward. Why are you not talking about this? Because this is the public. They are looking at you, and you have failed the test.
Irene, how do you respond?
I will respond. The first one was we are not waiting for the president to set the tone. In any economy or in any government, the tone has to be set at the top. If the president doesn't set it, even our efforts will not be accomplished. And if you look at any organization that has great leaders, the tone is set at the top. And the tone is that he is no nonsense. There's no nonsense within government, and the tone is set there. Of course, we have a mandate to fight corruption, and we know that, and we are fighting that. Going forward, we have decided as a commission that 70% of our resources and time will be on preventive. That's number one. Number two is even if you look at the county governments right now, we have decided even to come up with a program for even the MCs and even the county assembly staff, because we have realized there are issues in the county governments. So we are not just sitting back and waiting for the president to talk. No, we are working behind the scenes. And our mandate is to take people to court, is to prevent, is to actually instill ethical values within the systems of government. And you know, instilling ethical values, where do you start from? Probably we need to look at the generations that is the youth. Because if you look at you and me, we all go to church. Who doesn't know what is right and wrong? Who doesn't know why we people engage in corruption? If you look at our country, look at even Uganda. The rate of corruption in Uganda is going down. Why is Kenya still going high? Ask yourself that.
All right, let me bring it. He also asked you about the judiciary. Do you think it has complemented your efforts? Has it been difficult to get convictions in particular? Perhaps that's a more fair question.
I should say probably, you know, we used to be in the advisory board. Probably then we used to have some challenges. But we have decided to have a sitting, even with the deputy DPP. And even if we send files to the DPP, the concurrency rate, I can say, is 95%. We send a file, he will concur with us. And with the judiciary, we have actually had meetings, because we are all independent. We can't really go and force and say, and even I think the CJ also has its independence, and also the judges do their rulings independently. But nevertheless, we've had forums with the CJ in terms of improving the work relationship.
All right, let me take pause there so that we can get some of the feedback. We want to thank you very, very much indeed for sending it in. Let's take a look at what you're saying on social media. Perhaps we could go first to our text line, 2442. All right, I understand we cannot take that right now. Let me see if we could get social media again. All right. All right, it's coming up shortly. Again, we thank you for your views. You could keep sending them in. Here we go with your messages. Hashtag Opinion Court. The Jubilee government promised 1 million jobs annually for the youth. I haven't seen a thing yet. That's from @SladeJaco. @Etiangeli Emod, I apologize if I didn't get that right. Hashtag Opinion Court. Perfect definition of failure. Look at the war between our arms of government. Total failure. Here's another one from Sir Coach. Let us look at the brighter side of Atuwezo Fund as a step in the right direction. @Abonyok, for over 2 years of service, health workers on contract struggle making ends meet with only 19,000 shillings per month in the Uhuru Ruto administration. @Kontosh, you say, to be fair, the Jubilee government is trying its best, bearing in mind this is a new mode of government. Hashtag Opinion Court. @Johnson Wamboho, you say, a patriot must always be ready to defend his country against its government. A quote from Edward Abbey. K. Chassis, I believe, Jubilee government has seriously failed in security. If Karen is insecure, how about Kayole? Hashtag Makodingo is right. Hashtag Opinion Court. Final one here coming from @Njoroge_Kamau. PSVs can bribe in broad daylight on Thika Superhighway and everywhere. How do we expect them to follow law? Hashtag Opinion Court. We continue to thank you for your views. Remember, long after this program is done, you can continue, of course, to send them to us. That is the official hashtag. Gentlemen, we quickly must wind up. I want to quickly talk about the final big story of the week, which was the success of Kenya's Lupita Nyong'o in Hollywood, shining right up there with the brightest of them, having won that Oscar award. And I had to clarify that we're all parents on the panel, so I feel comfortable asking this question to you all. What do you think it has meant for Kenya, and especially in terms of how we steer our children? Do you think more parents in particular, should open up to different and diverse fields? Let me start with you, Mr. Karivi.
I think in terms of what we call the new emerging activities, which is the service sector, art, media and all that, I think parents should agree to release the children, because we are in the other generation which may not even understand what acting means in the first place. So I think hearing them is important. I think the spirit of promoting acting as a way of growing the economy is a very, very key thing. And I think Lupita brings that to the table to open up to the other children. And if we quote what she said, any dream is achievable.
Hashtag Makodingo. What do you think? What does it mean for young people and employment opportunities, and where we could go with the Uwezo funds, etc.?
In Vision 2030, in the social pillar, yeah, I think one of the key areas that the vision looks at is arts, sports, and entertainment in terms of creating employment and opportunities for young people. For what has come out of Lupita is great for young people, because, like she says, your dream is valid. So if you are acting in some river road production, it's a possibility that you could grow big, you could go national, you could even go international. But as for parents, I think we need a reorientation, because if I took my child to Brookhouse for 16 years and then they came and told me they wanted to be a guitar player, I might not take it very kindly.
You'd feel ripped off.
Yeah, I will feel ripped off, you know. But I think the world is changing, and if part of what this government must do, I think they have the orientation, they have the thinking, there are people thinking about it. Part of what this government must do is to take concrete measures to promote arts, to promote the entertainment industry, to promote sports. I mean, we know the Marigas and the Olieches, and they have been earning a lot of money out of this. They must take concrete steps to help young people to nurture these talents. Create these talent academies in counties. I mean, let us grow this industry, remove the barriers. Yeah, it is easier. It's weird that a Kenyan film is shot in South Africa because of the barriers, the bureaucracy that it takes to actually shoot a film in Kenya.
Right.
So we need to break some of those barriers to make this possible.
I know we must wind up, but I do want to hear from you, Irene, before we do that.
Okay. What she talked about, wherever you're from, be it Kibera, be it where is the lowest place in Mombasa, your dream is valid. And I think that is very true, because any child given the opportunity can make it. And I have a child who's a teenager, and he runs long distance, and he thought he can run and make money. So I told him, no, don't. You have to give me the certificate first. You have to. That's the way we were told back home.
Yeah.
So if you look at best countries where unemployment is very low, it's because corporate entrepreneurs actually nurture young people at a very young age in different diverse fields. And I think as a government we need to open up and ensure that talent is created within our society.
Professor, very briefly as we wind up.
Very briefly, I think parents should start allowing